Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I'm Chase Earl, joined as always by Alex Lord. Alex, the Hawks finally ripped the Band-Aid off and fired Nate McMillan, a move that they looked like they were going to wait till the end of the season to do. And Hawks fans are rejoicing. Pretty much everyone agreed Nate McMillan he was a lame duck head coach. He was not going to be the long-term answer. It was just whether they do it now or at the end of the season. Landry Fields says he needs to light a fire under the team, whatever. It looks like they're trying to salvage this thing and hire a coach in season. But I want to talk about the head coaching search. It looks like they're eyeing Quinn Snyder, who I'm kind of surprised is even interested in this. If I'm a top head coaching candidate, why would I want to go to a team who has ownership issues, who has a new front office, who has a star point guard, star player that has helped oust his last two head coaches? What is enticing about the Atlanta Hawks job right now?
I agree, but I'll play devil's advocate. First of all, Trae Young is an elite player. He's a superstar. DeJounte Murray's an all-star. So you got two things right there. And even though, Trae's leadership leaves a little to be desired, and that's inarguable. People who are, blaming this shitty season solely on Nate haven't been watching. There's no doubt in my mind Trae played at least a minor role in this team underachieving. He leaves his intangibles are just not even close to where his tangibles are. He's a box office scorer, one of the best playmakers in the league, but he's not a leader. But he's still, a superstar talent. So those two things. And reports say, Snyder could be also hold the title of president of basketball operations, similar to, this is not the first time this has ever happened. Pop does it. He'll have full control of the roster probably. And that's probably a very enticing part of the job, if it is, a thing. And I think that Tony Ressler, Nick Ressler, Landry Fields, Kyle Korver are pretty much, their hands are tied behind their back. They're not going to be able to go out into the coaching pool and be like, we're the hottest team, we're the hottest job offering, because they won't be. So this is the sort of thing they have to do is like, well, you could just have control over all of it. So, that's pretty enticing for somebody like Quinn Snyder.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Quinn Snyder is an upgrade over Nate McMillan.
Without a doubt.
But let's be real here, guys. The Hawks are running out of excuses. They're running out of things to blame. It's this, it's that, it's the coach. We blamed Lloyd Pierce. We blamed Nate McMillan. How about the fact that ownership is a mess? We have a front office that is very new. We fired the best thing that's happened to the Hawks in years and Travis Schlenk. Or we didn't fire him, but forced him out, exiled him, whatever you want to call it. This is just a mess. The roster is as thin as paper. There's 7-8 good players. The rest of the team is just awful. Justin Holiday, the Kevin Huerter trade, everything is a mess. This is heading towards an implosion. I've been saying this for weeks now, for months now. This is heading toward an inevitable implosion. Trae Young is eventually going to be traded. DeJounte Murray's a free agent after next season. They are not fixing this. And if they
disagree.
No.
I disagree.
And you can disagree. And I am going to be as passionate on this as, I'm overly optimistic when it comes to the Braves. When we're 11 games up or down last year, I never wavered. I said we're going to win this division because that's a good team. The Hawks are not a good team. I'm not going to sit here and just, be a Mr. Fan guy and fanboy this terribly run organization. It's awful. From top to bottom, it is a complete mess. And the only thing that can fix this team, and we're not going to have a high draft pick. We're going to be a mediocre team, a treadmill team, as they call them, which is the worst thing to be in the NBA, where you get a middle-of-the-road draft pick. You can't get one of the best players. You can't really improve unless you land a miracle draft pick because it's a crapshoot. The only way this team has a chance to save anything in the near future is if they somehow land a superstar in the middle of the first round, which the chance of that happening is like 5%. There might not even be one available. After pick 5 next year, there might not be a superstar available. There just might not be. There's only like 1% of these draft picks hit. And the best guy at picking those guys was Travis Schlenk, who you just exiled out of here. The chances of this team salvaging this situation with Trae Young, the Trae Young era in Atlanta, is so low it's not even funny.
Okay, I'll let you talk, and I totally disagree. Listen, I don't think a rebuild is out of the question because, like you said it, DeJounte Murray, if DeJounte Murray doesn't re-sign, that's the key. The key is if DeJounte Murray doesn't re-sign, then you just traded all of those draft picks for nothing. And that's what's going to be the problem. Now, there's far too much talent on this team right now to just, oh, we're headed for a rebuild. Nate McMillan came in, led the Hawks to an Eastern Conference final run. And then he came in and put all of his systems in, put his assistants in play, and the Hawks were shit. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Now, if a head coach can come in and kind of bring back that life, from that Eastern Conference final run, we won't be having this conversation because the talent is there. Trae Young is elite. DeJounte Murray's an all-star. We were all talking about John Collins a couple years ago being one of the most efficient power forwards in the game. DeAndre Hunter is quietly having a very good season right now. AJ Griffin looks like he's prime to replace Kevin Huerter. We won't even be talking about Kevin Huerter next year. So there is talent. The bones of the roster are still there. The culture, however, is just one of the worst I've ever seen, regardless of sports. I mean, just in general, companies, it's a terrible culture. And it starts at the top. It starts with Tony Ressler, and it permeates throughout the organization. And there's no accountability. There's nothing there that's stopping, this train derailing. I agree that, the train is derailing. It is derailed. Whether Quinn Snyder can get it back on the tracks is another question entirely. I'll have my reservations. But we'll see. I totally disagree, though, that the rebuild is inevitable. I think that's such an overreaction.
Part of my issue is I don't trust anyone in the building.
Yeah, that's fair.
Cool. If we had the Golden State front office, maybe I'd be like, yeah, sure. We can figure this thing out. We don't. We let Travis Schlenk walk. We have a 27-year-old running the team. I respect Kyle Korver and Landry Fields. They could end up being great at their respective positions, but we don't know that yet. And what about what's happened over the last year gives me any faith in saving this thing? Nothing. Just nothing. So, yes, is there a way that this could be saved? Yes, but there's nothing about this front office. There's nothing about this organization that tells me that they can save it. They become a laughingstock. And at one point, and listen, maybe it's not a total rebuild, but at what point do you say, all right, this isn't working. We need to at least retool. And the way to retool would be maybe signing DeJounte Murray to that long-term deal and getting rid of Trae Young. Because Trae Young is an ultra talented dude. He's incredible. He's going to have value around the league. I know people get mad at, you'll see national pundits ragging on him. He doesn't play defense. He's not a leader. Whatever. The guy could still go out there if you traded him with 4 years left on his contract and get you 4 first-round picks or a bunch of young players and picks. So at what point do you say, hey, this isn't working? Because you can't trade DeJounte Murray now because you're trading him at a loss. You really just can't do that. You have to hope you can re-sign him next offseason. And the only other avenue I see is moving Trae Young if they don't find a way to get this thing working with those two together after this season. I just don't see I just have no faith. I have no faith in this team. And the last thing I thought I was going to be saying 2 years ago is, hey, man, maybe we should Trae Young. But this is something Travis Schlenk, before he got exiled, brought up to ownership. And that's basically where the split happened. A big part of it was DeJounte Murray trade, the Kevin Huerter trade, and also Travis Schlenk wanting to explore trading Trae Young. I just don't see a way. It's hard for me to imagine. I mean, they're going to have to pull off a miracle. And at this point, why would I believe that this front office, this ownership group can pull off the miracle necessary to save this thing? I just don't see it.
I'm much more bullish on the future of the Hawks. Let me just say this. Nate McMillan was never the coach for this team. He's an old school guy, and these new players just don't vibe with him. I mean, you could have seen it coming from a mile away. With that being said, there has to be somebody that come in here and rule with an iron fist. Maybe Quinn Snyder's that guy. Maybe it's Kenny Atkins. I don't know who it is. Somebody needs to come in here, look Tony Ressler in the eye and say, are you going to give me what I need to put a winner out on the floor? That's the biggest thing, because we could talk about how dysfunctional the team is, the players, the coach, Nate McMillan, all this. But the fact remains that Tony Ressler forced Travis Schlenk to trade Kevin Huerter because he was afraid to go into luxury tax. He actively made the team worse because he didn't want to pay a small penalty fine. And it was small, folks. It wasn't, $20 million. It was going to be a couple $1,000,000. So, and for a guy who has a B in front of his net worth, that's nothing. So whoever it is that comes in here is going to have to sit down with leadership, which is crazy, is going to include Nick Wrestler. It's going to be Corver, Landry Fields, and both the wrestlers, and say, hey, you need to give me what I asked for to put a winner out on the floor, or we're not going to be able to re-sign DeJounte Murray. That will signal the end for me. If DeJounte Murray doesn't re-sign, it's the end. We're going to have to blow it up. That's the only way to salvage. You can't continue to try and build around Trae Young at that point because you have no draft picks. There's nothing to, kind of entice free agents to come there because we've seen Trae Young flame out before. So DeJounte Murray is the key. We have to prove next season that it is worth re-signing here. Once we re-sign him, then we could start talking about more of a long-term. But everybody should be worried about the now. Right now, if Quinn Snyder comes in, I just keep saying Quinn Snyder because there's reports that it's becoming formal and they're really targeting him. And if he comes in season, we'll get a head start, I guess, on the offseason and see what we potentially need in terms of personnel wise. But there's a lot of concern. I have a lot of concern about right now and next season because if DeJounte Murray leaves, the Hawks are fucked.
Yeah, it's just all the things you're saying, I just don't believe in them. Like the Kevin Huerter trade was just absurd. Not wanting to go into the luxury tax, making the team worse. Trading for DeJounte Murray, even though Travis Schlenk was hesitant against it. Not at least being willing. Like, I'm not saying trading Trae Young last offseason was the move. I obviously wouldn't even have thought about it. But I think you explore all of these things. I mean, look at the Utah Jazz. They got rid of Rudy Gobert. They got rid of Donovan Mitchell. And they're better than the Hawks. And now they have like 8 first-round draft picks. I mean, you got to explore these things. At least explore them. See what you can get. Dangle it out there. See if someone will overpay. Trae Young was coming off a season where he averaged 30 and 10. And maybe Travis Schlenk saw this coming. Maybe he didn't believe Trae Young was the leader that could lead this team to the promised land. Maybe it's just wild. And I don't think the Hawks have the right people in place to save this thing. And right now their talent is so paper thin that there's no way they can compete this year. And to be honest, the Eastern Conference Finals run 2 years ago was fool's gold. The entire NBA was injured. We beat a Knicks team that wasn't any good. And we beat a Philly team that had Ben Simmons before we knew Ben Simmons was broken as bad as anyone's ever been broken in NBA history. I mean, it was fool's gold. We beat them in 7 games. Like, all we did was beat a pretty bad or a mediocre playoff team in Philadelphia. Since then, every other Eastern Conference and Western Conference team has improved and the Hawks have gotten worse. This team isn't the same team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals, and the competitors, the competition around them is significantly better. So no coach is going to come in here and turn this around and all of a sudden the Hawks are going to be contenders again. It's not happening. It's just not happening.
I'm still holding out hope because
I hope too. I mean, as a fan, I hope.
Yeah, but you're just not giving the talent enough credit. The talent is there. The talent
is there on the top end. But
listen, I'm not arguing.
They're 7 deep.
I'm not arguing that talent is there to make an Eastern Conference final run by any means. But the talent is there to be much better than 2 games under 500. Nobody is disagreeing there. We shouldn't be in the play-in.
They should at least be
the East
better
is
than the Knicks. They should be better than the Knicks.
Yes. So
I'm holding out. Like, what is?
Yes,
what,
they can. They can. With the right guy in charge, they can.
They can. But what is being better than the Knicks? Is that our ultimate goal? I mean, I hate the Knicks. Trust me. I want to be better than them. But that can't be the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal has to be seeing a future, a light at the end of the tunnel of a championship run. And with this current group, I don't see that. And part of the reason is the current group includes ownership. It includes the GM. It includes, what was Nate McMillan, and now we have an open coaching void. If you get Quinn Snyder, that gives me a little more faith. Maybe they can do something this offseason to turn it around, to tweak it a little bit, to make it look like a lot better product on the floor. But I've just lost faith in all of it. And it's really just an organizational thing. I still like Trae Young, but it's impossible to not be swayed a little bit by these 2 years and wonder if he is the guy to lead you to a championship. It's impossible. If you don't at least have those doubts.
I agree. And anybody who's just like trying to make excuses for Trae, you're just not being a fair fan.
You're paying him $250 million.
He is the face of the franchise. He has got to be better as a leader, as a maturity. And listen, I'm a little bit closer in age, or I think I am the same age as Trae. I would not be able to handle that. So I'm not saying,
but you're not making $250 million.
I agree. But I just want to put it in perspective that, it is kind of crazy to ask a 24-year-old to take the keys of a franchise and expect them to just get everything right the first time. There's going to be trials and tribulations, and, Trae's had his fair share of, knocks. But in that same breath, like the talent is there. Nate McMillan didn't use John Collins at all. And that's the craziest thing to me is like we had a guy there who's a 20-10 guy every single night. Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, and John Collins are a good enough big three to get you where you need to go. I'm not saying finals, but I'm saying get you where you need. Eastern Conference Finals, maybe. The East is trash.
It's a good enough starting point. It's a good enough starting point.
I mean, those three guys,
and you eliminate the depth. It's moves like that just blow my mind. I mean, I can't get over things like that. And then you have a 27-year-old, which is my age. I'm running the organization. I mean, seriously, imagine me running the organization. Listen, I think I know a lot about sports. I could not run an NBA franchise.
No, but listen. Somebody like Quinn Snyder, who is known as a hard ass, not a hard ass, but he's just a tough guy. He's a no nonsense guy. Comes in, looks a billionaire in his face, and says, "Hey, buddy, what you were just doing didn't work. So let me come in and try my way." And I'll say this team right now, as it stands, is better than anything he ever had in Utah. Anything. So. Yes.
I don't know about that.
Oh, whatever.
Top to bottom, they had some pieces.
Whatever.
They had some pieces.
I'll die on that hill. But the point remains is that somebody, potentially Quinn Snyder, can come in here and revitalize this thing. New life, new blood, a new culture, more, the expectations are probably still there, but they're certainly not as high as they were this past year. And then the year prior, coming off the Eastern Conference Finals run, we were like, oh, we're primed for, another finals run. And then we got DeJounte Murray, sky-high expectations. Going into this next season, it's kind of make or break. Expectations are still there. But I think everybody's just kind of tired of the Hawks. We want to watch. I have slowly watched less games as the season has progressed, and it's a shame because I love the Hawks. I love Trae Young. I love DeJounte Murray. I love this team, but they're just playing such uninspiring basketball that it's a shit show to watch. It really is.
It's gotten stale, in my opinion.
That's a great word.
It has gotten stale. And listen, I hope and pray a coach helps this team. I hope if they can at least finish the season strong and give this team some life going into next season.
Momentum.
That's really got to be the end goal here because they're not winning anything this year. But if you can add a couple depth pieces next year, over the offseason, whether it's trade or free agency, if you're actually willing to go into the luxury tax and improve this roster, things could be a lot different.
Listen, I'll give you two things that have to happen, and if they don't happen, then the Hawks will never get out of this. Tony Ressler has to write more checks. We're going to have to go in the luxury tax to get better, just as how the roster is currently constructed. 2, he's got to take his hands off of basketball operations. He has got to let the people he put in place make the decisions, and then he's got to swallow it if he doesn't like it. He's just got to swallow it. If those two things don't happen, the Hawks will never get out from this. DeJounte Murray's probably gone after next season, and then we're still just losers who can't even get into the playoffs. I mean, this is not a play-in team. Like, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think I speak for all Hawks fans, no matter what, whether you agree, whatever you feel about Trae Young, it's been disappointing, and it's frustrating for all of us. I've completely lost faith. You still have some faith. I don't think it's impossible. I just don't think we have the right people in charge to get the job done that needs to get done, and they have to make perfect moves, and they don't have a lot of wiggle room for error. That's really what it is.
That's a fact.